So thank you for joining us on Diaspora Lounge. On this episode, we're talking about mothers walking their daughters down the aisle on their wedding day. And let me make this caveat before we start that our whole intention is for our conscious empowerment, because when we're looking at our experiences over the years, the horrible things that are happening to us as a people are all stemming from the decisions that we've taken in the past. Taking decisions out of emotions and sentiments, anger, and all that doesn't give us the best results. Can we start going forward, thinking more deeply about the things that we do and the effects they will have in the future on all of us? Whatever happens to any of us affects all of us because we're all still going to be interacting with one another one way or the other. Even if I don't meet you, you might meet my own relatives, or your own children might meet my own relatives. And that's why we should all care about these things. Now, I have two guests with me. Unfortunately, one of them isn't able to show up on video, Bishop Oscar Osai, and I have Dr. Tope Roberts. I am going to let them into the studio now so that we can get in on this conversation. We want to be candid with everything that we're saying. Nobody's trying to sound like they know it all or they know it better by giving advice that this is what and what. And some of us are speaking from our own personal experiences. So let's just go in and start. Thank you, Tope. Thank you, Bishop Oscar, for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's go. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So you've heard what the topic is. What's the first thing that you will say? Let's have the bishop speak first.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure coming into this conversation from here in Nigeria, Lagos. It's necessary to say that so you can see that this is completely the African perspective. First of all, like you said, we all have a background. Life brings people together, and you can't, once we have come together, once there's a child involved, it becomes a shared life. It doesn't matter how it happened. It doesn't matter why we are having to deal with a situation where we are even discussing this. So whatever the reasons are for this conversation is secondary. What we're saying is that our child is ready for marriage, and we are considering the mother walking the child down the aisle. And what I'm saying is that we have a shared life here. A child is a product of a relationship between two adults. No matter what happens, that relationship existed. Let me leave it like this first.
Right. Dr. Tope, can you add your voice to this?
Thank you so much, Uzo, for the opportunity and for the platform. And good morning, afternoon, evening to all our viewers from all over the world. And I want to thank Bishop for us a bit more of the African perspective. When I heard about this, thing I did was actually to go and do a bit of research around the history of fathers walking children down the aisle and giving them away in marriage. And I found that this dates back to centuries ago, where marriage was almost like transaction, and the father was the financier, quote and unquote, that would attend or give his child away to the groom so that the groom will know, one, you cannot escape this. Two, I'm almost like giving you the backing that you need, that I have spent money on this child, I have groomed this child, and I now give this child away to you, and so that you know that she has my full backing. And over the years, all over the world, and that didn't start in Africa. So the first thing I'd like to say is that it is not an African culture. It's something we learned and that we imbibed into our culture. And over the years, what we found is that there has been changes and differences in the way this is done. We found places where maybe the father is not available because the father is late, and then an uncle does it or a brother does it. And more recently, we're having mothers do the same thing. So I feel that the first thing we need to understand is that this is not our tradition. It is not our culture. And the people that originated this, they came from a point of the father being the main caregiver for that child and standing in the gap to say, I am giving my child away. So I believe we need to have that understanding as we delve more into this discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. What I will do is I will read out some of the contributions that people made, because I had earlier posted this on social media and we had some conversations and people were dropping their thoughts on this issue. Just a moment. So what I can say from what people are saying is that some of us have a knee-jerk reaction. We just feel like we're angry, nonsense. If a man will not be there for his daughter when she's growing up, why would he all of a sudden come out and want to be there to walk her down the aisle on her important day? And some people are like, nonsense. This is what a man is supposed to do in his daughter's life. So why would anyone think that a woman should walk the daughter down the aisle? And I find that when we take decisions like that, we're not even considering the person that we're talking about here, right? So who is going to be most affected by what happens on this day? I believe it is the daughter. Because
Exactly.
yes, because those people have lived their lives. And yes, even though the man has not been present in her life, sometimes a girl might actually say, I want my father to walk me down the aisle, even though he hasn't been present, because at least I want him to play this role in my life. Sometimes she might say, I don't want him. And the mother will be begging her. And she'll be saying, no, he wasn't involved in my life. I don't want him to do this. How dare he come right now? So people, most of the time, might be assuming that it is the woman who has instigated this girl. So can we look beyond all that and talk about the girl herself? What happens afterwards in this situation? Toka, do you want to take that, please?
Okay, so I believe that a child that is old enough to say, I want to get married, means that this child, one, has the physical, the mental, and the emotional grit to go into that marriage. And I feel that that child should be in the best position to make a decision as to who's going to walk her down the aisle. Again, don't forget the significance and the history that I alluded to at the beginning of this conversation. Walking a bride down the aisle is almost like the aha moment. It's the moment that everybody, if you recall in church, they're looking back, where is the bride and who is going to be next to the bride? It's her big moment for that occasion. And I feel that a child that is old enough to be getting married in the first place should be wise enough to make that decision by herself. And people should not point fingers at the mother for instigating her should she decide that she does not want her father to carry out that for her. I don't think any child should be forced into a very significant day of her life to choose who will walk her down or who will not. It should be her full decision. And I'm sure we'll come to this later. The next thing is, why is she making the decision she's making? What is her why? And if her why is the fact that I would rather my mother walk me down the aisle, or rather my brother walk me down the aisle, then we have to respect that.
Okay.
Okay, let me read some of those.
No, can I
Bishop
make a
wanted
comment
to
here?
respond to
Yes,
that.
please. Please go ahead.
I listened to the doctor's presentation, and a lot of you people who live in the West, when you talk about Africa, you don't take cognizance of the fact that when you say Africa, Africa is actually a continent. There are several cultures, more than 500 cultures in Africa. Where I come from, the girl that is getting married is actually a property of the family, not even her father. It is her father that hands over the girl to the most senior man in his family, who now hands over to the father of the man who is marrying her before they hand over to the man. It's actually a circle. So it's not just about the girl getting married. The girl getting married is her big day, but it's also the family's event. We need to keep this in a proper perspective in this conversation. Otherwise, we won't cover all the grounds.
Okay, so the issue is this: even whether it's the family or the whether it's the family or the bride or the parents, I think that's what I think. What comes most to my own mind is the person who is going to be affected the most by whatever happens on this day, right? And I think that it is that girl. So how much do her own thoughts matter in this conversation? Because she's the one who is bearing. I feel that a lot of our issues come from us not recognizing as a people that what is going on in the mind and psychology of a person is of utmost importance, and that is what is going to bring everything else that's going to happen in that person's life, bring about everything else that's going to happen in that person's life. So even if this is a custom, it belongs to this person or that person, when are we going to start thinking about the effects of what we're doing? Because even when we say, one of the comments in the conversation was that this is wrong because this is not cultural. And I say, even if something is cultural, whether it's cultural or not, we're human beings, and human beings will always do what? Will always, what is the word? There'll always be transitions that will always continue to iterate. When we see that the decisions that we're taking based on the reasons that we had before are not giving us the best results, we will change, right? We always evolve. So I think that we should get to a point where we will stop saying things like, this is a culture, therefore we must do it. Now that we're more aware of how these things affect our lives, even if it is a culture, sometimes we have to go beyond what the culture is, right? How does that sound to you? Because I imagine saying that it's the culture, and therefore, let's say it is the man who has to give his daughter away. And then because of that, we bring the father who hasn't been involved in her life to walk her down the aisle when she's saying no. I will say that I don't see how that is really going to affect her afterwards. In fact, if you ask me, I would say that such a girl should please consider allowing her father to take her down the aisle, even though she's angry with him for all those years. And the reason I'm looking at it this way is that it's just a day. If he walks me down the aisle, right? And anybody who's listening to me might say, Uza is saying this because she hasn't been in those shoes. She doesn't know how it feels. Don't be too sure that I don't know how it feels. Maybe I just can't tell you a personal story right now. Maybe I have had encounters with other people. Maybe it's not even my personal story, but maybe it is my personal story. So I would say that it's just a day. Can he walk her down the aisle on that day? If he hasn't tried in the past to either kill her or RAPE her, right? Maybe he can walk her down the aisle on that day. And then after that, she can continue to leave him out of her life. But if it is such, yes, because if it is such that this man has traumatized her so much, and it will now be her will being taken away from her, and then making her go through him walking her down the aisle because it's a custom, do we realize that we're going to cause her more trauma? Because it's like, this man has done this thing to me all my life, and even on my special day, I am still forced to have him be a partaker in my special day. So I think at the end of the day, we need to begin to recognize that the person who is most going to be affected by our decisions is the person who takes this decision. And it shouldn't be up to culture unless it is going to hurt her. What do you think?
I believe, thank you for that perspective. And I believe in culture and tradition. I'm a Yoruba girl, and we have our own culture and customs. And I believe in the eastern, northern, southern parts of Nigeria, we all have our cultures. But look, there are some cultural practices that even over time are starting to change. And as a medical doctor, I'll give a few examples. In the northern part of Nigeria, child marriage is cultural, isn't it? But then we have very young people, as a result of what the culture and the norms are, getting pregnant at a young age, dying prematurely, and having severe side effects from getting pregnant before their bodies are ready. That's culture, isn't it? And now we're not insisting on that. Female genital mutilation is another cultural practice where we find young girls being circumcised so that they will not be promiscuous. And that is the culture. But what is happening in some parts of the world, at least in the UK, it's a criminal offense for you to circumcise a girl. And people have gone to jail, and people have had to pay heavy fines for this practice. Now let's bring into our customs and culture when it comes to marriages. We say, okay, culturally and according to the custom, this girl is somebody else's property, or the property of the family, and the father has to do this, and this is the culture and tradition. The flip side is, how is it affecting this girl? How is it affecting her emotionally, psychologically? How is it going to affect her health? Look at it. You say, no, it's a big day. It's just a day. But that day might be the most important day in that child's life. Why, if we're able to make a shift on these other practices, why can't we make a shift when it comes to a particular person walking this girl down the aisle? I believe it should be her decision, or she should be a part of the decision-making process, because things are evolving. This is 2024. We can't still stick to our cultures and norms from the 1940s and 1950s. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Tope.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's a very good point she's made. I want to approach this point from two perspectives. One is that traditions and culture, they are progressive. But what happens is that a lot of information, like the female genital mutilation she's mentioned, United Nations and several agencies have been pumping a lot of communication issues into this area. And it is gathering a lot of momentum, and people are beginning to see the problems with this culture. And that begins to inform the minds of the people concerning the practice, as a result of which it's naturally dropping off. Even in the north, I lived in the north. Yeah. Now, something like this conversation is relatively new. And two is that this girl in question, whatever issues she has had with her father, for instance, did she use the methods of handling issues of this nature in the family before we get to a place where the father becomes an uncle or a distant cousin? As a result of which her mom is walking her down the aisle. When did the problem start? What effort did they make to solve the problem before marriage became the issue? As a result of which we are considering the mother. I am saying that, one, a lot of information has not gone into this. I am a communication specialist by training. That's what we call communication for development. Yeah, when things begin to come up, you begin to create massive information so that you manage a situation. Yeah. So we need to keep this in view as we discuss further.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Bishop.
you.
I will say that. You want to say something?
I wanted to say something about, but I don't want to veer off, and I just want to really thank Bishop for that perspective. He's talking about crisis management right from the beginning. And I just want to kind of make a clear-cut distinction here. When you say a father, who really is a father? Because now, of course, we know in this generation and in the last few years, women are getting pregnant from sperm donors. They're going to the sperm bank and getting pregnant and having children, and they call those children theirs. So in this case, who is a father? Who are we defining as a father? What's the definition of a father? Is it somebody that just gets a woman pregnant and has a baby? Or is it someone that has actually been present in the life of this child? I think that's also very important, making that definition clear, that who is playing this role of a father. Is it just a sperm donor, or is it someone that...
Okay, I think you're bringing a dimension that I didn't even think about.
No, I thought about it.
All right.
I thought about it.
Awesome.
I thought about it.
Okay.
But the issue again is, how is the proper child defined? As we are defining the father, how do we define a proper child? Again, in African tradition, when a child is born outside of wedlock, there's a way we look at it. These are facts.
Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Let me say that first of all, I will go back to the issue of culture, because I live in the West, and I'm saying this because of your comments, Bishop, about those of us in the West. I almost think that I don't think that I am anything more westernized. In fact, if anything, I am now more cultural than I ever was. Actually, I believe more in our culture than before I left the shores of Nigeria, because
Maybe because of what you're saying. Maybe because of what you're saying.
Because of what I'm seeing here?
I'm sorry.
Are you saying, you say because of what I'm seeing here? No, not because of that. Not because of that. Because I have gotten older and I have lived longer years in this world, and I have now realized, I recognize that actually our culture and our cultural practices were stripped from us. And because of that stripping, we have lost a lot of things that could have been beneficial to us. And I grew up in an era where a lot of us were relegating our cultural practices. And in fact, we would say things like, who cares? You know, that actually I would. Who cares? I will do what I want to do. Although it's not like I was rebellious, right? But if it didn't make sense, don't hold me to it, right? But now, somebody made a comment in our conversations when we posted this thing, and it is true that the fact that, say, for our generation, the mindset that we had towards our culture has really impacted and affected a lot of things very negatively, right?
Yes.
And it is not just us, even our parents, because it is not enough to say to a child, do this because it is the right thing to do. If you explain things, right? But you know what? Even our own parents were caught in this thing of having the culture being stripped away from them, and then not recognizing how serious that was. I think that our parents even did not recognize the meanings. Even now, they still will not know. So, for instance, a couple who may have gotten married, a couple of my generation who may have got, no, a little older than me, who may have gotten married, at the time they were getting married, would not have been thinking things to the extent of this situation now, or when our child, if we have a problem and we have a divorce and our child getting married, and then coming to this decision of whether the father who has been absent in their life should be there. If we were more aware of those things, we will know the values of these things and have already in our minds, in advance of the time, that should a time like this come up, this will be the right thing to do, right? We will not be people who are so quick to act like we're so liberal and so careless about things. I will just do what I want to do. I don't know if I'm making sense. So that some people who are older than me, and even some people of my own parents' generation, and now younger ladies take decisions where they keep the child or children away from the other. Even men do that. Because recently I had a conversation where it's a girl who is not speaking to her mother because the father and the new wife lied to her and her siblings all their lives. And I know these people lied to them that their mother abandoned them. She did not abandon them. He abandoned his family and they went away with the children. But they brainwashed these children, and till tomorrow the children feel that their mother abandoned them, which she didn't do. And so people are doing this up until now without caring that this is what they're doing. They're destroying their children's lives. Even Dr. Sokwa and I have had a conversation where this actually destroys people's lives as they grow up, and they've never had the contact with the other parent because one of them was using that as a bargaining chip, right? Yes. So when someone talks about culture for this type of thing, it's not because one just wants to be a stickler to culture. It is because,
Exactly.
yes, it is
Exactly.
because, yes, it is because it is beneficial. It is beneficial. So for me, in addition to culture and what happens in the psyche of this girl, this is what's important. Imagine a situation where your daughter is going to get married and you decide that the father isn't going to be there, right? Because you're angry. Do you recognize that she could get into that marriage, and if unfortunately she has unfriendly in-laws, this will be an albatross on her neck?
Of course.
Right?
Before you get to that,
Yes.
can I add a point there?
Yes, please.
Okay. I am a preacher.
Right.
And I deal with spiritual situations.
Right.
I have dealt with a whole lot of foundational issues. We may not accept it because of this Western exposure. But what we see in Africa,
yes,
is that there are foundational situations. When you lay a foundation and the child starts with that foundation, it begins to multiply.
yes,
The things that happen to the mother begins to happen to the daughter,
yes,
begins to happen to the granddaughter. And
right.
And let me tell you, yes, the granddaughter, I'm talking about the daughter of this girl that is about to marry.
Okay.
That we're discussing who will walk her down.
Right.
And let me point this out as well, that, look, some of these traditions or cultures we are discussing create a lot of safety nets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But by the grace of God, I have traveled in this world, yeah? And I noticed that the West is technologically developed.
Mm.
But sociological development, Africa has it more than any other person I've seen, except maybe Indians.
Mm-hmm.
When a child begins to have a sense of responsibility to family, you notice that she is never a loner.
Mm-hmm.
Her issues are family issues. But when your life becomes your life, I do what I want, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
In the day that a challenge arises, she's all alone. And the Bible tells us that a triple cord or something is not easily broken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is why you have cases of people taking their lives, people resorting to drugs, and all manner of negative or what we call deviance in society. And we have a lot more of it out there than here where we are hiding in our little communities. We are bush, but we are carrying along.
Okay.
Let me leave it at that.
All right. When we talk about culture, I would like us to have more conversations on that so that people who do not recognize the value and the importance of those things will not just see, because if I didn't know it myself, the way I know it now, and you come to talk to me about culture, I will be listening with one ear. It will be going in one ear. Yes, and be going out of the other. So we need to talk more about these things so that people can actually see the value of what you're saying, because you may know the value, but if the person doesn't know the value, it's like you're just talking because you want us to stick to culture, right? So let me read out.
I'll give you an example.
Right.
Just an example. Do you know that where I come from,
Right.
the meaning of marriage is that two different families have come together, not just the boy and the girl. Even to divorce, where I come from, you cannot just get up and say you want a divorce.
Okay.
For a marriage to fail, there is a man that is a go-between in the two families. He is invited, and he now goes to discuss with this family, goes to the other family. There are negotiations going on before finally it can be said that this marriage is broken. Now, but in this people's Western civilization, the guy gets up and just walks away.
Right. So we need to begin to address those things.
Those are the part of the safety net I'm talking about.
Yes. Actually, what I would say is that what I see is that most of our problems with marriage are not even about marriage. They are really about not about the marriage itself. It's in the creation of that marriage. It's in the fact that people do not really take the right considerations into consideration before creating those marriages. So there is no surprise at all that those things happen, right? Because because if you've made a decision without making an educated or informed decision, your foundation is shaky and has a lot of cracks. Therefore, it is no surprise. What we can do is, when we look at people who are in these situations, instead of castigating them, let's actually understand that it is all of us that failed as a whole, because somebody should have recognized this earlier. Somebody should have been able to recognize and see. But you see, we have a society where we don't speak. We will see something going wrong, and everybody, I don't know what people do, because because if the parents were actually talking to their children about these things, the children will not go forward to have these types of marriages in the first place, right?
Let me speak about where I am here in Lagos. In the work, the church work we do here, we have a standard of what we call premarital counseling.
Okay.
And post-marital counseling. Premarital counseling, no matter how much of a hurry, we must do a 3-month period of trying to know how this relationship started, trying to know the involvement of both families, trying to know. In fact, recently, I began to recommend that we do some assessment of mental health.
Good. That is absolutely necessary.
All right. Because sometimes some of the things you hear these days are scary. A boy meets a girl in the streets of Lagos and they got married, only to hear that there's marriage in their family line. I mean, madness.
If you permit, I will actually say that a lot of the people that we interact with on a daily basis, the truth is that a lot of people are actually not mentally balanced. And you can see it even when we have ordinary conversations, because you can see that a lot of things that are abnormal, you are told to just keep quiet about it. And then people ask you questions where you are surprised that somebody will be asking you a question about this. And that is because one of the reasons is because we have become people who get answers from other people because we have access to the internet, right?
Also, can I give you an information there on that very point?
Right.
My statistics, I have been involved in church for 48 years.
Yeah.
My statistics is that most young women who were getting married between 75 and 85 were daughters of first-generation graduates or second-generation graduates.
Yeah.
And most of the men were the first set of graduates in their own family line. So there's a socialization process most of such ladies have, which most of the men don't have.
What's that?
So, socialization process. When a girl is a daughter of, let's say, a pharmacist or medical person, and she's getting married to the son of a farmer who just graduated from UI or IFE or
okay.
any of these universities,
Yeah.
there's a difference in their socialization exposure.
Yes.
Now,
All right.
that difference begins to manifest in the home.
Yeah.
The man is trying to save money to build a house, to have some of those things by which society defines success.
Yes.
The girl is more interested in parties and candy and dressing and makeup and all this.
Yes.
It's not
can
that
I just
the person is right or wrong,
Yes.
but they are not able to strike the balance that a marriage needs.
Yes.
All right. I'm just going to.
Doctor, you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Yes. I just wanted to touch on one or two things you've mentioned, Bishop. Thank you for bringing that up. One is just to give us some more education around mental health. And the other thing is really to talk about unequal yoke, which is actually something we quote a lot in the church, that we should not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. And I recently did a series on that. To the first one, which is looking at mental health. Mental health is what I'll describe as a continuum. So if you look at a straight line and you look at the beginning of the line and the end of the line, I would say mental health starts from one part of that line right to the other extreme. Now, the lower extreme actually could be normal looking people like myself or Uzo or like yourself that may be dealing with some slight anxiety and depression, but that we have a way that we're handling it. Either we're praying, we're exercising, we have looked for ways to handle our stresses, we try to sleep well, so it is still mental health. But in this case, we're healthy with the mental health challenges we're facing. In the middle will be people that have mental health problems that maybe need medication and maybe need to see a therapist and so on and so forth. At the extreme will be people that have lost touch with reality, what we call psychosis. And we could get that whether the people that we say are mad, people that are vagrant on the streets, wearing rags and all whatnot. So that's another extreme. Or people that are so sick that they have to take them to a mental institution because they're so depressed and they have to shock them, what we used to call electroconvulsive therapy, to get them back to life. So it is a continuum. That's the first thing. I'm sorry to generalize. Everybody's probably dealing with one sort of mental health problem or the other. Now, you mentioned about family history. Family history of mental health problems. And yes, certain mental health problems can be genetic. Some things like schizophrenia. But it does not mean that because a gentleman that wants to marry a guy, his uncle has schizophrenia, means he's going to get schizophrenia. There are other things that we have to look at. So yes, I agree with the mental health assessment, but I don't think that should preclude us from allowing people to get married if there's a family history here or there. Just that medical point. The other one, which I believe Bishop also mentioned, is the unequal yoke, what I call the unequal yoke. And I did a series on that. So you talk about this lady whose parents are graduates, in love with this first generation whose father is a farmer. So even though they may belong to the same church, they're both educationally okay, they both understand and can speak English well. But when you look at that point, that is a part of the equation that is not balanced. And I believe that this is the time where we need to start addressing that building block. Sir, I've been married before and I eventually got a divorce. I was married to a pastor who was very educated. I was the fourth child in my family. My parents were educated. They went to the UK and everything. His parents had some degree of education, but nothing to compare with my parents. He was the first child of 6 children. He was meant to care for all his siblings. Meanwhile, in my family, my father sent all of us to school. None of my brothers had to pay school fees. So getting into that marriage and you say I have to pay school fee for my brother and my sister has to.
So it was you he was talking about, actually.
It didn't work because even though we're both graduates, we're both in the church and everything, that was a point of big problem that started the crack in the marriage and it eventually ended. So I really thank you for bringing that up. And I believe that our men and women and girls and boys out there should understand that there are many, many angles to being, on the same
Together.
level and having a successful marriage. Thank you.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I will just say that I think that's why again I talk about our culture, because one of the things that has deceived us is that we watch movies and we see all these things that are placed in front of us, and
Yeah.
these things, some of them are fiction, and sometimes it just doesn't gel well with the background of the person that you're talking about.
Yep.
But you're trying to play out that script in your real life, and people actually do not will pick somebody to be a partner based on what they have seen in the movies, right? You're trying to pick a partner, the person isn't showing interest, and you think it's about buying flowers or doing your best and shouting for everyone to hear, hey, this is the person that you're interested in, instead of dealing with the person one on one. And when you talk about marriage counseling in the church for 3 months, the thing is that we're talking about living with someone for the rest of our lives. If we can go to school and learn how many legs a grasshopper has and all that, I'm not sure why we're thinking that 3 months is good enough. Because even when you're spending time with the person every day for 3 months, if you're spending time with the person every day for 3 months, even sometimes upwards to a year, you may not get to know that person enough. So it's important for us to have the education about psychology of humans and human relations.
Yeah.
Because when we have that, we'll better know ourselves and also know the people that we can flow well with. Right now, I can have a conversation with this friend of mine, and I know how I will speak with this friend of mine. But this other one, I know that we will not have this conversation because it's not going to go down well, right? So it's about really understanding who you are and who you are dealing with, right? Okay, but
Can I interject again?
Yeah.
We can allow the flow of the conversation, but I'd like us to
get back
several sense to it.
To the topic, yeah.
See, in England, for instance, they have a system that defines people's exposure. Places like India, they have their caste system.
Right.
And you find that people grow up in their castes. Let's say upper middle class, lower middle class, and things like that. And you find that marriages happen within this class structure. Hardly will you see a prince just going down the street to go and pick somebody who is the son of a
Carpenter. Yeah.
Carpenter. It can happen, but it's not a normal golf. Yeah. But here in Nigeria, one of the developmental issues we have is that the whole thing is modeled up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I blame the church for that, partly because some people go to church and they know the good girls, that some of them have American and British passports, and they will say, "Thus saith the Lord, you are my wife." And really what the guy wants is just to japa and leave the country. So the desperation sometimes, they use religion to deceive people. And a lot of women are fallen victim, unfortunately, sir.
Well, you see, again, I'm an advocate of balance always in my conversations in life, even in the church. I'm not in any extreme. But let me tell you this. There are also women who are exhibiting this same thing you have said.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There are people who are deliberately marrying people because they know that they want to use them for this.
Yes, to move on.
Yeah.
Move on. Actually, let's be practical. There is even nothing wrong in looking for an opportunity to move on, but let your intentions be made clear. What stops you from saying, "Hey, this is my interest, yeah? Can we work it out?" And you know from day one that this is what you are up against. Yeah? But it is still the same class issue that have been happening on that will make you be pretending about wanting to go out and not showing it. You want to deceive somebody into taking you out. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's not necessary. You can boldly come out and say, this is what I want. And if the lady is not interested, well, we'll call it a day.
Yes, and yes, I do support that, because we have less friction and less issues. But the funny thing is that life happens in contradictions in laws, and people cannot understand the irony that you want to use this person to do this thing, and how can you say you're going to tell them? But what we don't recognize is that we are already shooting ourselves in the foot when we start off on that thing, because
from day one.
Yes.
From day one.
Honestly, some type of honesty, even when it seems like it's foolish, is actually the wisdom. Is the wisdom.
Yes.
But unfortunately, because when you are so selfish about what you are doing, you don't even recognize it. Because when you are focused that I want to use this person, you don't actually notice anything else around what you are doing, because your whole focus is on that you're using the person, and you're thinking that that is all that matters here, right?
Can I also say this one?
Right.
In my own experience, I didn't come from the upper class at all. My father was just a painter for the public works department, but I had the privilege of having gone to proper secondary schools and university all my life. Because a lot of what they call university these days are not universities. You know, when I entered into the universities, late 70s, you had your table mannerisms, they served you food, you are entitled to 4 bed sheets and 4 pillowcases, 2 bed sheets every week, you're entitled to toilet soap, you're entitled to people coming to clean the rooms and all this and that. Now, some of those things created standards by which some of us developed, by which we were not desperate. Those days, when you are a graduate, you're treated as a senior civil servant. When you're a university student. But a certain wave came in Nigeria that destabilized the whole thing. And you see graduates behaving like university students, behaving like thugs.
Yeah.
And they bring these things into church. And even what we call church, what is so churchy about a place where nothing is taught other than jokes and funny, even a lot of what we call messages are no messages at all. Haven't you noticed that a lot of pastors that live in Nigeria can't function in your environment as pastors because they have no message for you? They have no message for you. You see, fall under the anointing and you buy a car. Is that what you're going to tell somebody that lives in America or Canada or Europe?
Makes sense.
These are some of the things. But then the churches that people troop to is where it is happening. And what is this thing that is happening actually? So, well, and incidentally, Nigeria is the hub, is the center of church in the world today, as it were.
It is.
You know, so lots of things. Like my sister, the doctor, just said, you married a pastor? What made him a pastor? How could you enter into marriage and the marriage failed? Not for any major, because there are major factors that end a marriage. So I begin to ask, what is the foundation of that pastor? What is the training?
If the foundation of the creation of that relationship isn't sensible, then then anything is enough to end it or to create issues. Anything at all.
The point I'm making is that a proper servant of God who was properly discipled, and you're getting into a marriage with a lady with a profile the doctor has just mentioned, I expect you to know that you need a certain rapid socialization to cope.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, I think.
I also expect you to know that you have to bend over backwards.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't cope. You won't be able to cope.
Yep.
Yes.
And if you will win every argument, it shows you're not listening.
Exactly. You can't win every argument when you're in a partnership, right?
When you're listening, even if you're listening, ordinary listening.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm talking about listening to the other person, not trying to justify your position, not trying to defend yourself.
Right.
You can see what the other person is saying. You can see what they are yearning for. Because if actually we were married, there was a time we were in love.
But we know that it's not always love. It's not always love.
Even if it started on a left leg, something made it start.
Yeah, but maybe what made it start was temporary, so that as soon as I acquire that thing, I'm ready to leave.
My dear Uzo, can I tell you something? Do you know what I believe?
What?
I believe that any man can marry any woman, actually. Yeah, I believe that.
I think that is impossible. That's not impossible.
Yes. All it takes is know yourself very well. I'm telling you. Look, if I have had, it cannot be less than, in fact, it will be more than 300 marriage cases I've seen in my life.
Bishop. Okay, maybe we'll do that as a separate topic, because even just the experience that the doctor shared with us just now, to me that should be conclusive for us to understand that my background and my expectations in life, if they are stark different, if they're really that different from the person that I am marrying, that means we are planning to get in there to keep on butting heads, because I believe so much in what I have seen as the way life should be, and they believe so much in the way they've seen life should be. Why do we want to come together to be fighting every day? Even when we're raising our children, everything is going to be a battle.
You're not coming. That's what I was saying. You're not coming together to be fighting every day. You're coming together with a knowledge of who you are getting into a relationship with. You're coming together with a knowledge of knowing his strengths and his weaknesses. You're coming together with knowing her preoccupations.
Why do I want to forget my own? I don't know. I can't see how this. Okay, let's talk about it another day.
Let's get back on topic. I think we really veered off.
Anyway.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm not interested in considering those things, because they are completely different from the way that I believe that life should be. So why am I even going to start considering? So what I should do is, yes, I won't find someone who is thinking like me. But when I see someone who is not thinking like me, I understand that if I want to make life work with this person, I have to know now how to work with those things that he believes in that I don't believe in. But as soon as I know that I cannot, I don't want to even hear it, then...
Can I give you an example? Just one example before we move on. I used to know a couple.
Yeah.
The lady, that marriage has failed.
Right.
The lady is tending towards a sanguine. And the man is more like a choleric. The lady will come back, and just in the sitting room, she will remove her dress and feel free, and this is embarrassing the man. And one day, I had to get involved in a conversation where the issue was, why is he hiding my pants and hiding my all this and that?
Hiding her what?
Her underwear.
Oh, she was hiding herself?
The man was hiding, trying to put the house together so that nobody won't come in and be embarrassed in the house.
Right.
And she was understanding it as the man is. Why is he always hiding? Let's feel free. Can you see what I'm saying? Sometimes when we discuss generally, we don't get to the root of the issue. But when he handles specific cases, doctor should know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You begin to see the heart of the matter. As far as this man is concerned, he knows the weaknesses of his wife, and he's trying to help package her.
Yes.
Now, that in itself, there's nothing wrong in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it just takes you knowing that, hey, this man means well for me.
Oh, yes.
And the man knowing, and the woman, vice versa. So again, that brings me to a very critical conversation, which is compatibility. The world defines compatibility in a funny way. Compatibility is not that two of us are outgoing and the children will be forgotten in the car. Compatibility is that you're sanguine and I'm choleric, and therefore, if you're on the road, I'm keeping the home front. It's not that two of us see things alike.
Compatibility is just being able to work together, to agree to work together, whether despite your differences or your similarities.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But some people think that compatibility means that, we can go out in the morning and come back by 12 midnight and tomorrow we are going again. No.
Yeah, that's okay. They've chosen to define it in their own language. You can't change a fact by...
We're leaving our topic entirely.
No, we haven't. It's part of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
so let me...
Some of the reasons for failure of marriages, sometimes, I was listening to Kingsley Okonkwo's wife, and she said that a good man may not walk away when he's going through difficulties in the marriage, but he may just see you. That's how she put it.
He may do what?
In other words, the king Esther and her husband. And the king that married her, the first marriage.
Yeah.
The guy will just coil into himself and stop talking. And stop bringing out himself, because each time he speaks out, there's a lot of contention.
Yes.
So he begins to manage his emotions. He doesn't want to explode.
Yes.
And you begin to interpret it that he's no longer forthcoming.
Yes.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this is because, why do I need to die before my time? The aggro is too much. I don't need it.
Yes.
So it works like neglecting the woman, but it's not really neglecting her. He's trying to reduce friction.
That is wise. Yeah, of course.
But you need to read it as wisdom. A lot of people will not read it as wisdom. A lot of people will read it as that he's seeing somebody outside.
That's the same thing that we're saying, that we're not thinking. We need
a pastor, an experienced person over our lives. We need people that have exposure, that will come under their oversight, so that the way we interpret things can have at least a second opinion. When you go to a doctor and they read your sickness or whatever you have, sometimes it's good to seek a second opinion.
You go get a second opinion.
Exactly. But some of us are huddled up in places where all we know is all we know. And scripture teaches me that they that compare themselves within themselves are not wise.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wanted to read out some of the comments. Yes.
Go ahead.
We talked about our culture. I'm just looking at the comments. So yes. Now somebody said, a woman who is taking on a traditionally male role at her daughter's wedding. Okay, I think I talked about it. Might suggest that the daughter has had an unbalanced upbringing or lacks certain values, and it immediately sends the wrong signal that that men are not valued. That's actually one thing. So I think we were touching on it when I was saying that we need to also remind people who want to jump to take this decision like this, that there might be some negative after effects when she gets into that new family that she's marrying into, because it can start working against her, and you don't want to start off on that. By creating, you already... Yes, so you already give them a memo that you are troublesome and you're coming from people who are troublesome, so that when something comes up, instead of giving you a fair hearing, you're already being looked at as this person who is just difficult.
That's how her mother brought her when we were married. I saw it. I took notice of it. It was her mother that walked her down. So now that they are not listening to me, I should have seen that as a red flag from the beginning.
Although the person who made the comments was suggesting that in a situation like this, because now we want to proffer some solutions, in a situation like this, because I also said sometimes the girl would insist that she's not having the father, and the mother will actually be the one begging her to let the father just walk her down, and she would insist. So we can also consider that there are other male members of the family, right? So somebody else could stand in for the dad if this girl is refusing that her father walked her down the aisle on that day. And
can I tell you my view? Can I tell you my view?
Okay, please do.
I am sorry. It's a pity that I live in Africa.
Right.
I don't even want to live in the West. I don't want.
Right.
Listen, why is this girl so? Why does she think she can insist on who walks her down the aisle? Why?
Can I give an example?
What gives her the temerity to think that it is in her place to choose who walks her down?
You are saying that it's because of alienation from the culture? That's what you're saying?
One. And two, children that are brought up by single parents are usually not balanced.
That happens a lot, yes.
A whole lot. I know what I'm saying.
No, but
because,
okay.
Hold on, let me land. Just hold. Because it is not in her place to choose who walks her down in a proper environment. Even if the marriage was well, she doesn't have the right to choose who walks her down.
Okay.
I beg to disagree. That might work, sir. You've said you don't want to live in the West. In the West, you're a full-grown traditional Nigerian man living in Lagos, and that's awesome. However, sir, respectfully, when you move out and you live in the West, you've, number one, taken these children out of that environment. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot recreate Nigeria within the four walls of your house and exterior of your home. You can't recreate Nigeria in the school. You can't recreate Nigeria when they go to college. You can't recreate Nigeria when they hang out with their friends. These children are taught some level of independence. I remember growing up as a child, any child that sat down with and wanted to draw all the time or wanted to play ball all the time as a child, they were beaten up. Meanwhile, those kids were only trying to express their strengths. You understand what I'm saying? Meanwhile, here, every child is left to be who they want to be, to express themselves, and we live in a society that works and that functions. It's unfortunate Nigeria is where it's at today, but maybe if people were able to really think independently and make up their minds and make their own decisions, we'll probably be better off as a country. Therefore, there's no way I'm going to tell my 18-year-old, for example, that you do as I say. No, I have to be able to present facts. So if I tell them it's our culture, they'll say no. Because, for example, I'll tell you a story of someone that is very close to me. The whole marriage broke up when she was 3 years old. Between the ages of 3 and 7, she tried hard to get in touch with her father. It got to a stage her father said to her, "Don't ever contact me again." It is in writing, on email. Okay? Now, this child turns 21, 19 years after this man turned his back on her. He calls her and says, "Oh, I want to have a relationship with you." This child lives in the diaspora. She lives in the West. And she said to him, "You want to be a part of my life now that I'm sorry.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Let me quickly interject here. I'm sorry. I need to say this because it's actually not true that the child who does this is necessarily living in the West. In Nigeria, people younger than me at the time that I was there, people of my age were already taking decisions like this because it is painful. You actually have an experience of pain when you feel abandoned by parents. So even in Nigeria, even within that culture, people are able, everybody is not going to just take anything that you say because we're in Nigeria.
Good.
Because
Thank
we're
you
not
so
all like
much. Yeah.
yes. So
Let me
continue talking.
finish this story.
Yes.
So this man gets in touch, and the daughter says there is no basis for a relationship, because when I craved and when I needed you, you were not there for me. Now I'm fully grown. I'm fine. I have my world. You coming into my world is actually disruptive. So can you now imagine a few years down the line, the mother insists that this same man should walk her down the aisle on her the
She
day
might
that is
actually push the mother
very
away now.
important to her.
Like, okay, go on and join him. Let me be without both of you.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's it. That's my 5 cents. So I don't think it's a one size fits all. I think every person, we should take everyone within the limits of their story and of their experiences. And yes, I'm not anti-culture. Our culture is beautiful. I promote our culture. I went to church looking like this today. I got so many compliments. I am proud to be a Nigerian. However, my culture is not going to take away my mind, my independence.
It's not going to take away your humanity. For me, religion and culture cannot, first and foremost, is humanity, right? But everything else that we bring with this thing dictates this. We were born.
Please.
Yes.
Doctor, first, on that analysis you gave us, the question I ask is, between the ages of 3 and 21, when this girl was now getting married, did they not have any uncle, no cousins, no father, no mother to the man who they were in touch with?
Good. That is the conversation we should now be having now, because we made those mistakes. Let us now learn. Listen, if something like this is happening,
because in Africa, nobody brings children up alone.
Yes.
And that's why marriages last longer here.
Well,
because there are nexus, what I call, there are links. You understand? When the woman left with the daughter,
yes.
So nobody went to look for them. No uncle asked after them.
Bishop, can you rephrase this whole thing? Can we rephrase it like you are now saying, okay, going forward in situations like this? So can we put it that way?
Exactly, but that's what it is actually.
Because
what it is that I'm saying, in such a situation,
yes,
by the time you, with your daughter that is 3 years and you're living in marriage, for instance, there must be father of the man you're married to, mother of the man you're married to, some brothers of the guy, some uncles and cousins. Are there not people who hear your own story? Why are you leaving? Are they in support of your going? Even if you have to go and things have failed, you must be in contact with their family.
All right. Okay. The man is with another woman that is now the love of their life, and you are no longer important to them. They don't ask after you. Even when you call them, they tell you your husband left you because you did not allow him to have another wife. What do you do? And now the other woman is the one that is taking care of them. That is the person they have now embraced. So you've been thrown out. You become an outcast.
In my family,
you don't go looking for people that don't want you.
As you are speaking, in my family today, somebody has gone to make a lady pregnant and has brought her in. The mother of the man is telling him that thing you have there is a concubine, is not the wife who married for you. And the children of the other woman that you are insisting to take care of, the other woman must come back and take care of her children. So he had loggerhead with his father, had loggerhead with his mother, and all his relatives. And they are saying that we went with you. You told us you wanted to marry this person. We followed you to go and marry her. What are you doing with another person? Nobody in this family has been a polygamous person. You can't introduce that and come and destroy our testimony. Now, I'm saying that when families are making such arguments, their son is hearing it. Even if he walks away, the woman will have a sense of connection to such a family.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the saying that, in my culture, that you can marry a bad wife, but don't ever marry into a bad family. So at the end of the day, it's also the dynamics of the person you're married to. But now let's focus on this child that now wants to get married. Bishop,
yes, let now
put
come
yourself
back to
in that child's position. How do you think that child would feel? And do you think she will now go back to beg this same man to come walk out the aisle just so the world can think she had a father or a sperm donor?
Let me draw an inference from a practical experience in that light. There's a guy who was a very wealthy person, married to a wife, and somewhere along the line, that first marriage failed, and he now brought in an outside girl, actually. And when his finances began to go down, his problem was his finances, because I know. And he didn't make it clear that he was having financial challenges. And then the outside girl left with her children, and the children now grew up, went to schools, best schools in England, and then the girl came back. I, as the pastor, knowing what was happening in there, challenged those children to go and reconcile with their father. Would you believe that after I did that, the man came and told me that this girl wants to go and marry a photographer, one of these people who are into media. How can his daughter be marrying a photographer? He is like a photographer. But in the process, the man became sick and died. But before he died, I was able to bring this girl, and she reconciled with her father. And she was so glad, so eternally grateful to me that that thing happened, because she would not have reconciled with the man before he died. And now, at least, all the children from the other women came together, and they were able to give the man a burial. So the point I am making is, part of our problem is this individualism. This me, myself, and I. I have the money to pay my bills. I don't really need anybody. If you can't draw strength from the family, draw from the church. Or draw from what there are other, what do I call it? Relationships.
Could you please rephrase it like a message?
Okay, what I am saying is, if it is not working in the family between the man and the woman and their daughter, there are other relationships that exist.
All right.
Like
which was what that woman did.
Like
she
eventually
looked for figures. Yeah, she looked for other people that could
pick somebody from those relationships to work your death. Because why I'm saying this is that I am a man, I'm not a woman. A man who you got married to, and you, the woman, brought your daughter to hand over to this man, it is very serious information you're giving him. This thing will be a problem for this girl in less than 6 months down the line.
Exactly. All right, can we now turn it? Can we now talk about in a situation where a man has married a difficult woman and they're now separated, and the woman has the children? We know that in many of these cases, actually, let me not say woman, let me say any parent has the children. We know that in many of these cases, there are those who don't understand that poisoning the child's mind against their other parents and separating them from their other parents is actually bringing destruction into that child's psyche. Doing a disservice to those children. Can we, so let's say that we have a situation like that now. What should we say to a parent who the partner is keeping their children away? Because let me just say that 2 days ago, I had this conversation, and this is a situation with someone right now, right? And because the person is so difficult, the advice has been given, you know what, just leave this person alone with those children, right? But that is what is going to now have them end up in a situation like this, where the children will feel that, will believe all the stories, all the lies that are told by that poisonous parents, and the child will now grow up and now feel my mother or my father abandoned me, I will have nothing to do with them on this day. What should we say to those people? What can they do about it? Any idea? Because someone gave me an idea yesterday. Someone said, you know what? If it's a man who is sending money to the children may not even get to know that their dad has been sending money all these years, right? So he said, create an email, and every time that you're sending money, make a note of everything there and send it, so that after 15 years, 18 years, when those children have grown up, they can actually see that you made all these efforts. So maybe you're writing to the woman and you make a copy of the amount that you're sending or anything, so that when that time comes and you get in touch with your children, they can see that you were making an effort to be part of their life, but it was their mother who didn't allow you, so that you have some evidence. I want us to bring up some practical evidence, things.
Let me give you a practical one I was involved in along this particular line. The guy was living in America, Maryland, and he got married to this girl, and he came to Nigeria and picked up this girl and married her, gave her papers and all that. And the girl became impossible after giving birth to 3 children. I relocated to California. And then when I got there, this guy had declared himself bankrupt. But he continued to send birthday presents, Christmas presents to these children, write their names and send, and the mailman will bring it back. And he kept piling up these things by the garage. He kept piling it up. So one day, this man used to drive me around whenever I come. So one day we were in the house, and this young, brilliant-looking boy comes in. In fact, his elder brother died a few months earlier. And he went for the burial of his son. Police didn't allow him to come near. He was looking at them burying his child from a distance. That's his first child. It's the second child that came, who's become a very smashy, handsome boy, sports boy, first-class brain. He came to his father, who was asking around until they found 44 his father lives. And he just walked in and said, "What did we do to you that you abandoned us completely? Are we so bad?" This gentleman broke down and said, "Follow me." I said this happened in my presence because I was going to court with him as he was looking for divorce.
Yes.
He went into a garage and brought all the presents he's been buying that they've been rejecting. The boy broke down and started crying. Their mother had been telling them lies. All his effort, even how his brother was buried, how he came, the police wouldn't allow him to come near.
Right.
The guy, do you know that boy left his mother?
Of course.
Of course.
Because he had been through that pain of longing for his dad, but this is the woman that prevented this from happening.
Yes. And the guy remarried to a very brilliant lady who is also a pharmacist doing very well in California. So the point I'm making is that a lot of times, those impossible women, there are women who are impossible. Let's face it. But they lose out eventually.
Yeah. So what other advice can we have for a parent in this situation right now? Because maybe they won't be able to see their child for another 15 years. What other advice can we have?
I would say one, the patient that has custody should know that she's doing herself a lot of disservice by poisoning the mind of kids. As we can see, at the end of the day, it will boomerang and she will be the greatest loser. I believe that if their father wants to really reach out to them, they should be allowed to. There is no point trying to punish. We had a long conversation around this also. Maybe you can reshare that video here as well. You know, they should allow their fathers do whatever, even if you feel it's not enough, whatever it is that they can do, let them do. And at the end of the day, the best judges are those children. They will know how much their father cared for them or their mother cared for them or did not. And let that decision be that of the children, not your own.
Okay.
Exactly.
I would just like to remind such parents that the situation that you're finding yourself now, and you're behaving like this, it's without meaning to I'm not trying to insult, but the truth is that when you're behaving like this, you're being antagonistic like this, it shows that something is happening with your reasoning. And when you do this to this child, you're you're going to position your child to end up in a similar situation where they can't have peace and fulfillment. So think about your child and what you're setting your child up for. But
And balance. And
yes,
balance.
but on the other hand, I will say that there will be those who will hear this and they still will not listen because, as we know, we don't know their mental state. So I want us to direct whatever we're saying to the parents who are being deprived of their children for the next 10, 15 years. Let's address what else can they do? Any other idea? So that on the wedding day or any other significant time in the child's life, they can have something to show that what you were told is not what actually happened.
Let me add prayer. God can handle any situation. Prayer, keep praying about it. And there is something about the man. The man focuses on his immediate problem always.
Okay.
And keeps doing the best with his immediate situation.
That is true.
I want to encourage my fellow men to know that life doesn't start and end where you are.
Right.
Good. Reach out. Continue to do your best to be reaching out. Even if it keeps failing, keep trying. Let the fact that you're trying become the testimony you have. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
I feel men need to hear that, and it's so good to hear that coming from Bishop, that they need to keep trying. And for women, please don't be bitter and don't make your children pawns to fight your battles. They didn't ask to be brought. You made a decision to bring them into this world. You should not make them bitter as well. In fact, the more you let go, the better your own life will be as well.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a moment.
If I may also add.
Yes.
I don't know how this will sound, but let me just try it out. Let our women be open to love.
Yes.
What I mean by being open to love is be willing to receive love.
Yes, but who does not want to receive love?
My dear, many people don't.
Okay, so that would be another conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and how about the rest of us? When we get online to make posts or to make comments, can we do less of instigating and encouraging people to take decisions that are going to work against these children that we're talking about? Because when we get on there and make comments like that encourage people who do this, some of us are healthy people and we're thinking from a healthy point. But if you say this to someone who is unhealthy, who is the one who is deliberately withholding the children and their other parents from a relationship for no just cause, because people do these things for no just cause as well. When you make those kinds of posts, those people are going to take it and justify what they're doing. So can we watch ourselves with the kinds of things that we put out there? Because we have a responsibility, right? So I just wanted to say that. That just crossed my mind. Right.
That's true.
And yes, and if you are going to marry somebody else, marry another husband or another wife, and that person may not be warm enough, may not welcome your children, may not encourage that relationship. So, and you may not be strong enough to tell yourself this is not the relationship that I should have. You may go ahead. You're going to have to make sure that you figure out a way to, if you have access to your children and you're not being prevented by the parent who has the child, then you're going to have to figure out a way to handle that relationship outside of your new marriage. Yeah, that's
no. Let me say this here.
Right.
The Bible teaches that he who loves the Father must love the Son.
Yes.
Talks about the begotten. You cannot say you love God and you don't love His Son Jesus.
That's why I addressed them, because some people will know this, but they will still go ahead because they will not discipline themselves to say this is the wrong partner for me. They will still want to go ahead.
Yes, that's why we are. This is a teaching platform. We're trying to open eyes to things of life. You see, somebody cannot love you and not love your child, even if it's not from him.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways you can read proper love situation is that the person loves the children you have.
People like to lie to themselves. People actually marry people that they know they know the person doesn't even love them, but they want to marry the person.
Yeah, they're desperate about marriage, but the issue is that desperation always brings frustration at the end. Mm-hmm. If you're hanging around with a guy who doesn't like your children from your former marriage, you are doing a disservice to yourself.
All right. So now somebody said, knowing that society forgives dysfunctional men, because I feel kind of responsible for saying the things that I've said. Like when I say, go ahead, go ahead. This is actually a true fact, what this person said. The person said, knowing that society forgives dysfunctional men who sold nothing but sperm, Tokwe said, sperm donors. This is one of the problems that we have in our society today, because a man will just know that, oh, I'll walk away and do whatever I want, take any side chick and get another marriage or whatever. And I know that the children will always, at the end of the day, I'll always still be called because I'm the father. Right? So
that was why I said that a man has a tendency of focusing on his immediate problems.
No. We're talking about the one who deliberately, not even just. Yeah.
Yes, I have already provided the counsel.
All right.
That you should look beyond your immediate environment. If you have a child outside, look out for that. Your child. It's your child. No matter what happens, it's your child. You should have responsibility towards that child.
Okay.
That was the answer to that point.
Okay. So we have, I think we've come to the end of this. There are other issues that arose out of this, but those will be other conversations. Because I have someone here saying a man is the head and all those kinds of ideas. So no matter what happens, if a woman walks a daughter down the aisle, there will always be problems and ancestral causes and stuff. So those would be another day. So do you want to add anything else before we close, or did you get everything off your chest?
I believe I got everything off your chest. Thank you.
So we're good?
The only other thing I'd like to add is you made that point, but let me re-emphasize it. Let us not throw away everything in our background, our culture. Those of us who are exposed here in Africa, or who went from Africa to these places where you people live. We have a lot of challenges, no doubt, but there are some good sides. Let's learn from Indians. Let's learn from Lebanese. Let's learn from people from South America. They have a way of building their own communities around them so that their traditions are not entirely usurped, as it were, by the Western liberal models. We are not bad. I know that it's not something so fantastic to say I'm from Africa. If you
says who?
Those places.
Who says?
Well,
no.
That's what we see.
It is fantastical. It is fantastical.
Some people behave as if they were born in California. Their village is California. You know. So, but we have some good sides. We don't all live on trees here. There's good life here.
Nobody lives. They don't all live on trees.
I know what I'm saying.
All right. Mm-hmm.
So that's just what I want to add.
Right. Okay.
Be proud of yourself. Be proud of yourself. Yeah. Be proud of yourself. You have something to offer.
You know what, Bishop? Maybe I will invite you for another conversation on that, because if I'm telling someone to be proud of themselves, I know that I am proud of myself, but I know why. I cannot just be proud of myself because someone said so if I don't understand why I should be proud of myself, right? So maybe we should have that conversation so that we can actually detail these things so people can understand. Those people who don't understand can understand.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this conversation. I hope that we have, I wasn't checking comments. I really hope that one or two things would have popped out from this to be helpful to some families, to all of us as a whole as well. And thank you for being with us on this episode, everyone who's seeing the conversation. And with that, we round up. Enjoy a beautiful week ahead, right?
Thank you very much,
Dr. Tope and Bishop, have a
Uzo.
good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop. Thanks for your
Right.
insights too.
Okay.
Good night.
So Dr. Tope, nice also being on set with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Okay.
All right. Okay.
Mm.
So you heard all that. I pray that this is beneficial in your life. And if you like this video, remember to like, subscribe to this channel, and share the conversation so that other people can be consciously empowered, because that's all we're about. And everything we do here is for all of us. It's about all of us. Right then, bye-bye. Enjoy a beautiful week ahead.